everybody, both people in the BCS office in London and also people online. This is a truly exciting event for us because not often do we do a hybrid event, and it's always good to see real people. Thank you for making the way all the way here for those of you who can. The reason why this is special is because this topic called AI for everyone is really what we truly meant by making sure that technology is accessible to everybody in the world. The BCS stands for making IT good for society. This is why people like myself, my colleague Maria behind, our speaker here, Alex, and David over there, we are all members of the BCS trying to make sure that we do what we can to make IT good for society, right? And within the BCS, I am chair of the BCS Digital Device Specialist Group. And the whole idea of it is that we want to make sure that we leave no one digitally behind. And that's the reason why we organize this event. We cover all kinds of topics because we want to demystify this thing called technology for everybody. And what better way than to kick off making sure that, instead of being fearful of technology, we want to embrace technology for what it can bring. We also want to make sure that we're aware of some of the pitfalls. But most importantly, we want to hear from experts, people on the ground who knows what they're talking about. Okay, so for today, we have a very special speaker here, Alex Barker, right? Alex Barker, he works as a disability consultant for 20 years with this organization called AbilityNet. Now, I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him introduce himself in terms of why he's doing what he's doing today. And before we kick this off properly, can I also get Maureen to say a few words, because this event would not have happened without Maureen organizing this. So Maureen, please come and say a few words.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. It's good to see you all here. Such a different audience to what we're used to at BCS, you can imagine. For many years now, I've been campaigning for commissioner for older people, seniors, because as you probably have all noticed, the government never mentioned senior issues. They've only recently caught up with the fact, it seems to me, that the National Health Service and the care system is absolutely in bits, isn't it? Completely, almost collapsed, very disappointing. And so our mission for campaigning for a commissioner is hopefully taking root. We've been turned down already once by the government. I've tried to draw in all the different groups like Age UK. I'm on the board of Age UK, and on the National Pensioners Convention, we're all campaigning for senior issues by having a commissioner appointed just for us. There's a children's commissioner, there's all sorts of commissioners. We need one for seniors. Memory, of course, very important. I've been dabbling in AI because I felt I ought to know a little bit more about it. And as a commissioner and writing reports and information, sending information out, I've used AI to check on the things that I've not been very sure about, or to give me further ideas. And it suddenly dawned on me as I was losing my eyesight that I was having difficulty with emails, typing emails. It dawned on me, why don't I let the machine do the job for me? And so I typed in one sentence and got a full report on the role of a champion. Freddie introduced the idea that I might be a champion for digital divide. Didn't know what champions did. No idea what champions did. So I typed in, what is the role of a champion for seniors? And I got this wonderful result. It's absolutely perfect. and it saved me hours of typing. And it's so good. I mean, there are one or two issues I might not have even thought of putting in. So that was, I thought, the answer for people with sight difficulties. Of course, there are many other uses for AI, but that was my start into AI. I don't know if you saw this morning, there was a report about AI being useful for creating a software for people who are losing their memory.
A great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you've all come across the moments when you forget things. And it's being developed by Sheffield University, and it's called Cogmos Peak. So if anyone's interested, get in touch with Sheffield University, Cosmos Peak, and developing it. Unfortunately, they say it won't be completed for about 3 years, but it's interesting that to learn, a number of seniors are getting involved with researching for it and helping to develop this software. But this brings me really to the point that we must start shouting about our values, because how many of us are volunteers? I've been volunteering for 24 years since I retired. I don't know about you, but once I retired, what a shock. I'm not in the front line of IT. And that was a real shock to me because, oh goodness, what am I going to do? I used to come to BCS, of course, but we have to look at how we value our values, because unless we can shout at the government and say, we're volunteering, we're saving you no end of money. I find that so many organisations have got about 2 or 3 people working as organisers, doing the donkey work.
The comments are if you could move to the left, I think, and be visible in the camera for those on the web. I'm just reading the comments that are appearing.
Where is the camera?
So just stand around here.
Sorry.
Let's get into
Realise.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's me, and that's the future. We've got to start shouting about the value we add to the communities and the nation, because we're not useless. We're not this figure of fun that the entertainment world seems to be portraying us as. So I think that's the answer. We've got to, and of course, keep campaigning for all the big groups. Yeah, all the big groups know about it, and they will certainly point you in the right direction.
Thank you. Let me sort of remind ourselves why we're here today, right? I know the topic is AI for everybody, and therefore I think for many of us, we want to really come here and not be fearful anymore, which is why it's part of the title of this event. We have a lot of people online to hear about this thing, but I want people to remember that, you know, there will be many things like this that is going to come by and either make us fearful or make us not knowing what to do. And part of what we're trying to do here at the BCS is to make sure that as much as possible, we can really use technology for good. And that's the whole idea. And technology for good is not just about older people. It's also not about disabled people, it's for everyone. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Alex. And Alex, I would like him to say a few words about himself so that you can understand why truly he's a great speaker for today's event. If I were to speak about this, I don't think I'm going to be doing as good a job as he can. So Alex, over to you.
Thank you so much, Freddie. So good afternoon, everybody. Okay, it would be really useful if I was on the right presentation. Just bear with me. It's going to get better, I promise you. Right, okay. So, I'm going to introduce myself on the third slide, but thank you for being here in person today. Thank you for joining online. And for the next hour and a bit, I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence and how it could impact your life. Now, the first thing is don't be scared. There's probably going to be a lot of people here who are really concerned about what artificial intelligence is going to do. I'm going to try and make it nice and easy to understand and give you some practical solutions. So first of all, you might not have heard of AbilityNet, but AbilityNet has been around for 26 years. We had our 25th birthday last year, and I guess as a charity, we're doing quite well for the last 25 years in the charity sector. And we support people of any age living with any disability or impairment to use technology to achieve their goals at home, at work, and in education. And we do this by providing specialist advice services, free information resources, and by helping to build a more accessible digital world. How do we do this? So we've got lots of free resources, because come on, everyone likes something if it's free. So we have 500 volunteers if we solve IT issues either remotely, face to face. We've got fact sheets, webinars, and how-to guides, and they are all on our website. We do device donation schemes via our Connecting You scheme, and we've got lots of interesting news and blogs on our website. Just to talk about me for a while. So, as I said, I worked with AbilityNet for 21 years in 2 periods. When I started at AbilityNet, I didn't have any grey hair, and as you can see, I still don't have. Yeah, okay. Just one here. I've got a rare condition called Meavis syndrome. So it means my face is paralysed. I only have 2 fingers on each hand, and I've got other issues. But technology has been a real game changer for me. Without technology, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have gone to college or university and studied abroad, both in the USA and in Sweden. My claim to fame is that I've shaken hands with ex-president of the USA, Bill Clinton. And when I was in California, I met my wife online, and she's got the same disability as me. We met on Facebook. All good romantic stories seem to start these days. And she lived in North Carolina, and I lived in Coventry. Now, we've been married for 5 years, and I absolutely love her to bits. And I know what it's like to struggle to get work done, and I can relate to clients, and that's one of the reasons that I love to do this job. So, what is AI? Now, don't worry, I'm not asking you to take notes. I'm not going to ask you right at the end what it said word for word. But artificial intelligence, or AI, is a term coined by emeritus Stanford Professor John McCarthy in 1955. It was defined by him as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Much research has human programmed machines to behave in a clever way, like playing chess. But today we emphasize machines that can learn at least somewhat like human beings. So, do many people in the room, or does anyone have Alexa or Google? Okay. So, Alexa and Google use machine learning technology to help it work. It can access content in real time. So, we have Alexa in our bedroom. So, I can say, Alexa, what is the time? And it will say, good morning, Alex. The time is 7:28 AM. And if my wife asks it, it will say, hello, Erin, the time is 7:29 AM. So Alexa and Google can learn who's speaking. But what I really wanted to talk about was how artificial intelligence works. Now, everyone here will have searched for something on a search engine, many search engines to consider, although Google seems to have become the main search engine. So if you're looking for content, say you're looking for, I don't know, restaurants in London, it works on a spider basis, it works on a red crawler basis, and it searches for meta tags. But what artificial intelligence will do is AI uses machine learning to perform tasks as creating lists or describing images. It's been taught to do this. So over here, you've got the teacher. Over here, you've got the technology. So the teacher has taught the technology various things, and I'm going to demonstrate. So this was my garden last year when it looked quite tidy. It doesn't look like it now. And I got Seeing AI. So Seeing AI is a tool designed for blind and partially sighted people, and they can take a snapshot, they can take a picture of a scene, and artificial intelligence will tell you what that scene is. So it says, the picture shows a beautiful backyard garden. In the foreground, there's a wooden picnic table with a bench. On the table is a small owl figurine, a pair of green gardening gloves, and a green hand rake. And it says, you know, to the right, there's a part of a brick building. In the background, there is a wooden shed or cabin, etc., 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 etc. It has been taught that all of these things go into a garden, so it's recognised what they are. Now, if you're blind or partially sighted, this is a real godsend. You can take a picture of anything and it will describe what it is. So, if I took a picture of you, it would say a group of people in a room. But more than that, and I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to demonstrate what else it can do. So I'm quite lucky, I work from home. So I wanted to see what AI could do. So I took a picture of my back wall and told me it was a couch and a picture frame on the wall. I took a picture of me, looking really rough. It told me I was 54. I'm only nearly 52. And I tried to take a picture of a red baseball hat and it thought it was brown. So artificial intelligence isn't quite there yet, but it's learning all the time. Okay, so let's talk about ChatGPT. There are many AI assistants around. The one on Microsoft Edge is called Copilot. You've also got different ones if you use Opera or Realm. But I'm gonna look at ChatGPT in detail. So I don't know if anyone likes poetry here, but I absolutely love summer. So I asked ChatGPT to write about summer, and it's given me quite a nice poem. Okay, now it's done this because someone has taught it how a poem sounds. Now I'm not a poetry expert, but I'm sure that there are ways of writing a poem. So it's actually gone away and written a poem. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to see whether ChatGPT would write a poem about my dog. Right. Well, that's my dog, he's Snoxy, he's half dachshund and half schnauzer and half quite bonkers. And I really never knew that a dog could bark so much, but I do now. So I asked ChatGPT to write a poem, and it's written a poem, but actually it's used the same format as it did for the poem about summer. I can say that Bella was very, she didn't seem to care that I'd written a poem and just wanted to go for a walk instead. So that's how ChatGPT works. Now, you might not want to write poetry, but you might know people who are having a 50th wedding anniversary. So you might want to get ChatGPT to actually do a little bit of a speech. Now, of course, you can tell that ChatGPT is American because it can't spell bonnet. I have to be really careful about criticizing Americans for spelling because my wife said, well, that's the right way. So, but ChatGPT works because it knows what a 50th wedding anniversary speech sounds like. So you've got to feed it the details and it will go away. You know, I've only got one paragraph, but it goes on for paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. And one of the great things is that you don't have to use the whole content. It will just give you the starting blocks. So it will make you think about what you might need to include or get rid of. Right, so, other things that ChatGPT can do, it can make a shopping list. It can give you a recipe if you're diabetic. It will give you generic travel directions. I'll come back to those in a minute. And it will tell you about health services in your area. So, unfortunately, we all know that we might end up having to go to a funeral to speak about a friend that we've lost. So, I put into ChatGPT, I want to write a speech for a funeral called a man called David who worked on the railways, just for an example. And it's given me about 4 or 5 paragraphs of text. Now, you don't need to use any of this. You can use all of it, or you can use some of it. It's a great way of coming up with content because I wouldn't know where to start if I got asked to speak at a funeral. I just wouldn't know. But this gives me the basic building blocks and I can add or take away as I see fit. I don't know whether you can see this because it's quite small, but I've asked it to write me a shopping list. So it's got protein, dairy, it's Greek yogurt, mixed greens, tomatoes. Can't see wine or beer on here, and they're important things on it. So it's given me a list of things that I might need to actually buy. Normally, when I make a shopping list, as I go out of Sainsbury's, my wife says, when you're in the supermarket, go and get this. And I've just gone out, so I have to go back in. Now, where is it not very good? So it's not very good for travel directions. So today I arrived at London Euston, and it told me that it's got its own underground station. But actually, it didn't give me any more information than that. So what I would say is if you're using ChatGPT, don't ask it to get somewhere because it will give you some idea, but it won't give you the whole idea. Whereas if they go on to say Apple Maps or Google Maps, it will actually tell you that you need to get a train, as I did from Coventry to London Euston and so on. You know what? I hate to say this, but ChatGPT is not always right. So, for example, Tina Turner died last year, and I asked ChatGPT to write a paragraph about Tina Turner. So it did. Now, what it forgot to mention to me was that she's actually dead. And this occurs to me that this is quite an important thing. I don't know, maybe it's not. And you know why? Because the information that it's been given is out of date. So it relies on data. Sometimes the data is out of date. So when you're asked ChatGPT to get the data, be skeptical of the info that is given. So it was last updated in 2022. Well, in 2022, Queen Elizabeth II was still on the throne. Now, you could, if you weren't too aware of what was happening, you could use ChatGPT to come up with text that was incorrect, actually incorrect, really embarrassingly incorrect. So it won't tell you what your weather is like. It won't tell me what your news is. It won't be able to show you an image, but other AI tools can create images now. It won't tell me why my wife is always moaning at me. I never did it. But I wondered if it might be worthwhile looking at what else AI can do. So it can create images. Normally, there are image, you have to pay quite a lot of money to get an image creator. I don't know if you were aware, but there's been a lot of talk on social media sites about the fact that there are pictures purporting to be showing Taylor Swift naked, and there's some like deep fake images going around. It can help with conversational questions. It can come up with lists or itineraries. It can alter photos and give them a different look. It can come up with letters or reports. So just for example, here are some AI created images. This is not a real cat. It's not a real hat either. But it's what's that story? A cat in the hat? Dr. Zeus, right? But my dad's got a couple of old cars, and this is an AI created image of my dad's car. So I took a photo. I'm quite a good photographer, and I put it into an AI image creator, and it gave me that image. I quite like it, but it's not the image that I took. And I'm quite interested in the fact that if you take a picture and then you put it into AI, does it change it so much that it doesn't become your image? But I know that AI is here, and I think photographers are trying to just get their head around what it's going to do for people. So ChatGPT is great for producing content. However, you do need to give it as much information as possible. So if you want to write a complaint letter to the local council about noise, you need to say, you know, what your address is. You need to say, it's really noisy because there were, you know, roadworks going on. So you need to give it as much information as you can find. You need to be willing expand and possibly you need to be willing to add and possibly expand content. And you also need to double check the info to make sure it sounds plausible. Is AI perfect? No. AI relies on making decisions using machine learning, but it does not have empathy and might not be able to reason as much as well as humans. So when I asked it to write an eulogy for someone's funeral, it didn't say, "I'm sorry, Alex, for your loss." It just gave me a piece of text. So it can't show that, empathy. No. So, and in fact, when I was waiting for you to come in, I actually got ChatGPT to write a breakup email, and it does it, but it does it in the style of a formal letter. It's just, "I hope this message finds the well. It is with a heavy heart that I write to you today." It's not really how you would want to, address someone that you once loved. But what we're going to do, and I'm hoping this works, but we're going to see ChatGPT in operation. So, does anyone want to give me like a letter or an email complaining about something or anything like that, and we'll see what it comes up with? Yeah, hi.
Yeah, I'd like to give you the instance of where I live. You cannot park unless you have Ringo on your phone. So what does my 90-year-old friend do who doesn't even have a smartphone?
Ah, right, okay. So let's just go into ChatGPT. So, first of all, we've
Can
got
I-
to,
Do you have to download ChatGPT?
no, it is all. It's all,
Website.
what I'm gonna do is I am going to stop share, and then I'm gonna,
It's in a separate window.
let's see if I can. Okay. Right, that's awesome. Okay,
This is what we
Uh,
got.
complain about parking spaces needing smart phone.
Would you tell us how to get to ChatGPT from,
So that's,
say, Google search or something?
yeah, now you'll need to log on with Google or Apple or a web email. So you might have difficulties reading this, but it says, "Dear parking management, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to express my frustration and concern regarding the recent implementation of smartphone access requirements for parking spaces in your facility. While I understand the desire to modernize and enhance security measures, I believe this decision has unintentionally marginalized a portion of your customer basis." So it's given me the basis of a letter. And it says, it talks about LD drivers and other issues. So it might not have given me 100% of what I need. But I think it's a fairly good start at giving me the basis of what I need. Okay.
That's very.
Hi.
Alex, yeah, quick question. Is this GPT-4?
No, that's paid. This would be.
Yeah, well, that's what I encountered. It's like over £30 a month or something.
No,
Or
it?
90.
no, this is totally free.
This is the free one. Yeah, that's fine. I just wondered.
Yeah,
Also, if you happen to use Microsoft environments, actually you would get Copilot or the old Bing. It's actually ChatGPT 3.5 as well, and it's also free. So
Right, okay.
but actually, sir, it's a really good point that you made. You can pay for GPT. But I'm tired. I don't want to pay for anything that can help you. So I'm quite happy using it.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else got
maybe.
any?
Hi, if we can stay on complaint letters. I recently paid £8 extra for a view from my hotel bedroom, but the view was of a brick wall.
Right.
And when I complained, they said that no one else had complained.
Actually, your complaint sounds a bit like that Britain Faulty Towers.
Yeah, what did you expect? The Serengeti?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I did expect to see the North Sea, which isn't great, but I got a brick wall.
And I'm guessing the tide was actually in, was it? And it wasn't. Okay.
It's as if the reply was by GPT, to be honest, and not a real person replying to me.
Right.
Mind me asking, so how does one get to this free chat GPT
Okay,
on a smartphone? Well, that's all I have.
okay, what's it? I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go into it again. We can have some gremlins here. Okay. Let's just have it.
Video from text.
Then I would say never work with children, animals, or
I see.
IT. Yeah, right, okay. That's just training. Well, having to pay extra for a roof. Oh, yeah, see.
Very ceremonial.
Last time I did this, I got a request to write about the complaint of the ability net person who was actually doing the presentation. I'm not quite sure how that happened. But, so, as I say, it just gives you the basis. Now, one of the things that I like is that you can copy that into Word, or you can copy that into Outlook or whatever, and you can make changes as
Yeah.
you want to. I don't know whether anyone who's remote might want to give me a scenario where they might want to use ChatGPT.
Alex, one thing that we could show is once you've written this letter, maybe you want to change the style, or you want to make it shorter, or write it in the style of a foreign tourist, or I'm a German tourist complaining about this, or and then you can keep going basically.
So basically, you can ask it to write a formal letter, or you can ask it to write a casual letter. So, can you write a casual invite for a
Please do so, so I'm completely forgetting I'm talking to a machine. I don't need the please.
No.
Why not? I know. I know, say what, please.
This is see what was.
Alex, misspelling of casual, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Let's see what it says.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what, for some reason,
Space. It's what? It's what?
right, a council in the right to garden. What? So it has written a nice casual invite to a party.
None of them are free. You have to.
Unfortunately, it didn't say bring lots of gin and tonic, but you can add bits to it. So it's a real aid. If you can't think of the right words, because sometimes, you know, you've got writer's block, you can get ChatGPT to come up with content.
Just to add something to what you said earlier
Yeah.
about not trusting or being a bit more
Yes.
suspicious of the
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
So you gave the example about Tina Turner, that
Yeah.
everything might have been true. They
Yeah.
just got to mention she was dead. There was, I don't know if you know about the anecdote from the middle of last year, a couple of lawyers in the US used GPT-4, so the paid version of this,
Yeah.
to draft, to produce a submission to a judge,
Yeah.
explain why their case should be heard in
Sure.
court. And the GPT-4 submission referred to case law,
Yeah.
except it made up the case law.
Ah, that's a very good point.
So it's a bit like, for instance, in your example about Tina Turner saying, okay, she was born Anna Mae Bullock, and
Yeah.
saying actually she was born, Daisy Jones.
Yeah.
But you look at that and think, oh, that's absolutely true, because where else would it have got it from?
Yeah.
Except in this legal case,
Sure.
it made
Yeah.
up the submission. And in fact,
Yeah.
what the lawyers did, exactly what you just pointed out, they just took that, put it in the submission, then it on to the judge. They didn't actually even think about going to legal case databases and saying, actually, is this case actually even true? If they
Yeah.
bothered doing that, they wouldn't have been caught
Yeah.
and fallen foul of the judge.
So thanks for that point. And I think, it's a long time since I was at university, but university students now are using ChatGPT to come up with essays and
Yeah.
dissertations. It took me ages to write my dissertation, so I'd be mostly disappointed if someone else was able to write a dissertation using ChatGPT. But people are using it now as a way to save time, but not being really aware of what it can do. I don't want to knock it. I think AI is a great thing, but you've always got to think, actually, is this sensible what it's telling me? Is it true? When you go on the internet and you type a question in, and you think, well, it's on the internet, it must be true. But actually nothing could be further from the truth. And I think what I would say is that ChatGPT isn't the be all and end all. It still needs quite a bit of human interaction to get that tone right. So, and when I asked it to write something at a funeral or a birthday party, it's not showing any emotion. You've got to put that emotional thing in as a human, because if someone's got their birthday, they're going to be really happy, and if someone dies, you're going to be really, really sad. I think at the moment, that's where it lacks a certain something. Does anyone else have an issue getting ChatGPT could help themselves.
There's
Are
a
you going-
question in the chat? Sorry, does AI learn from its mistakes?
Oh. That's a $6 million question, isn't it?
Can you ask it?
Yeah, we'll just make up. It's AI male or female?
So.
Female, it's not gonna learn.
I think. I think artificial intelligence does learn over time. But I think,
It does actually record everything that you're typing in, so technically, it should know when it's actually made a mistake or if you disagreed with it. That somebody made a.
Can you feed back that you disagree? Or, you know, could you feed back? Is there a feedback option? You say, well, actually, that's not right.
Keep going. You can tell it, well, you're wrong, actually, I think it's this. I don't know.
It's there somewhere.
and actually, thanks for pointing that out, I think there are some sort of. You could say there were some privacy issues, because depending on what you ask it, you're thinking, is it gonna know about me? So for example, if you say, okay, give me a fitness regime for someone who's had a heart attack, you might not want other people to know that you've had a heart attack. Certainly don't put stuff in, how do I murder my wife? Because that might get you in the police. Actually,
Recorded.
You typed in house.
You've got evidence now.
Jesus.
well, tell you what, sir, if you want to try it out, you come up here and talk. Right. So, I've got diabetes, so I might want to know how to help my diabetes. It's probably right. Give me a health regime if I have diabetes. I'm not a doctor, it says. Right. It says healthy eating, follow a well-balanced diet, include fiber-rich food such as whole grains, legumes and fruits. Choose foods with a low glycemic index and so on. So it'll give you some ideas of what you need to do. Yeah.
Is it open to other people coming into your website?
Only if they get on only if they get your logon details. So for example,
It's secure in some respect.
yeah, but you know, you could ask it a question, then if they've got grandchildren or relations and they come on to ChatGPT, if you've not logged out, they could see what you're doing.
Okay, fine.
You can also share specific
Yeah, that's what I was
chats.
wondering.
So there's a share, well, I mean, in principle, you can actually share one specific one with.
I sir.
Are you going to address how to write prompts?
In terms of I mean,
Giving it a persona, the background,
right.
what you're looking for.
Right, yeah. So computers are quite stupid, they're quite formulaic. So you need to give it as much information as possible. And there are lots of ways of doing this. Now, last year, my mum was 80 years old, so we had a birthday party. And so my dad asked me and my sister to say a few words. So if they wanted to write, if they wanted to give it some context, you would probably do this. Right. So my mum is called Florian, and she used to work as a librarian. So, you know, it's written a little bit of context. So it says, as a librarian, Florian was the guardian of countless stories. I tell you what, so like this, she wasn't just a keeper of books, she was a custodian of knowledge, a curator of imagination and guides through the vast literacy landscape. Her love for literature was infectious. So you've got to give it like the name, maybe what she did for work, maybe where she was born. So it's all those little snippets of information that make a story come to life, if that makes sense. If you want to know about how to get the best out of this, when I get back to the office, I can do some research, but I don't think there's any one way of sort of getting the best out of it. I think different people are going to have different ways of doing it. But I actually think it's a learning curve. So, you know, at first go, you might not get the information that you desire. But you've got to think, okay, what other information can I actually give it to come up? Think of it as someone that you talk to create content, and that someone needs as much information as you can give. Yeah.
You can actually ask it to ask you questions about what you're writing. So you're getting it to tell you what is important to it.
Yeah, you can certainly do that. And I think one of the great things is you can probably prompt it to ask you questions so it gets the right information, and I think that's fundamental. The other thing that I was going to say is it's evolving all the time. You know, a couple of years ago, it would probably given me a totally different set of answers to the answers it's given me. In a couple more years, it's going to be really, really good. Let me give you an example. So in my role, I have to write emails to people telling them about different bits of technology that might help them. Can someone name me a chronic health condition where using technology might be quite useful?
Cancer.
Right, okay.
Well. Say somebody isn't financial cancer.
Using it to spot.
It's gonna say.
It's a bit more detailed.
I am not a doctor.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be its first sentence.
Let's just have a look.
Sometimes when you're using it,
Uh,
it gives an answer.
what?
It says, as of January 2022. I don't care about what's like
No, this is quite interesting. So it's telling me about MRI
So,
or CT scans or PET scans or liquid biopsy. So actually, it's telling me how you can diagnose cancer. But say for example, my dad's got Parkinson's, so I could send a reply who had an email asking what technology someone should use if they have Parkinson's. So, what is that? But it's in the way that you phrase it. And
How is this better than going on to sort of reputable medical websites?
okay, so with this, it'll give you paragraphs of text, whereas if you go on to a medical website, it will probably give you some idea, but it won't be in a conversational style. And you know what it's like going onto medical websites that use language that is really, really complicated to understand on what.
Well, not sort of NHS website or there are some American ones as well that are very user friendly and also one hopes medically accurate.
I think that
Trust any site.
no, that is a really, okay, so what I want to show you is, okay. So if you're just looking for information on cancer, you'll probably go to Google and it will probably take you to NHS or Country UK. But what this will do is give me a short summary of so you can ask ChatGPT in quite conversational English what the various things are. So I've asked, give me a short summary of having a cancer diagnosis. And it's given me a short summary of having a cancer diagnosis. But when you go on to Google, you are assaulted by 100 pages telling you what it's like to have a cancer diagnosis. I think I actually think you probably wouldn't want to use ChatGPT to ask about having a cancer diagnosis, but what it's done, it's given you a short summary and it's used quite a lot of different websites to garner information. Whereas if you're just going to the NHS website, you're just getting that information from the NHS or Cancer UK. So I think in terms of ChatGPT, it's going away and getting that information from various trusted sources, so you don't have to. If you have cancer, it can be a life-changing experience. Of course, it can.
Do you have to be a bit more specific when you're asking that type of question?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, so if you're saying, okay, and if we've got, you know, neck cancer or
Yeah, because cancer is very generic, isn't it?
or pancreatic cancer, I think it can only give you a general overview. But if I wanted to know about a condition, I'm not sure that I would use ChatGPT to do that. I mean, I might if I was writing an essay about a cancer diagnosis and I could include this text, but I don't think I would be using that just as a real-time information source. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, well, yes, I'm very doubtful about using it. I mean, if it's two years out of date to start with, and you don't know how authoritative the sources it's used are.
I think,
Could we take one or two questions from the chat, please?
Margaret.
Yes, Margaret, you want to read out one of them?
Yes, we've got a lot of comments backwards and forwards in the chat. So first of all, I was going to ask you, Freddie, if you could keep a record of it and maybe put that up on the website, because there's a lot of people who ask questions that others have answered already. Yes. But if I take the first question, could you explain the difference between paid and unpaid?
I think in terms of the paid, I think if you're using it, if you're using it as a tool, so you're running a business, I would certainly go with the paid version. I think the paid version gives you a bit more functionality, and I'd like to think the paid version was far more up to date than the free version.
You also,
Okay,
you also
thank
get,
you.
you also get DALI, you also get the image generation.
So for example, on my phone, I've got an image generator. I've just got GenCraft, and it can create an image. But then it says to me, if I want to use that, I've got to pay £10 a month. I think paying £10 a month or £20 a month, some people is going to be great, but I guess it's really what you want to do with the content when it comes out again. That makes sense.
Thank you. Could I ask the next one? Could you summarize several reports into a single report?
If you are asking about, let me think of something. I think you probably could, but you would have to. It would depend on how you actually phrase the question. So, for example, if you wanted to talk about, oh, I know how like costs make food more expensive. I think you'd have to give it as much information as possible. Then it would go away and get that information. What I would do, I think, is I would want to, if I was writing a piece of work, I would want to ask it 3 separate questions, and I would want to try and merge all of the answers into one document. I'm not sure whether ChatGPT at the moment has the functionality to deal with three questions in one, if that makes sense.
Okay, there's another one. Could ChatGPT write code and apps for you?
That's a good question.
Yes, yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, it's certainly good. So if you want to, actually, let me see if we can write some code. Okay.
Okay. There's 3 more if I could ask them quickly.
Yeah.
Could you use it for language learning?
In terms of, I don't see why you couldn't. I've not looked at doing that, but I think it would be wrong to assume that ChatGPT could only work in English. Right. Oh, no. No. So,
Interpret languages.
So-
Just translate it.
it's,
Yeah.
right, from HTML code to,
You wouldn't get you wouldn't get the pronunciation.
so,
Maybe it also helps to know that you might not want to have to be coding in HTML or Python. But actually, one thing that it does quite well is if you give it, it sort of can be a much more intelligent version of, easier to use version of Excel. So, so you can give it a table, for example, and it could do sort of like, you don't need to write macros anymore. Which is probably not, you know.
okay,
There we go.
so,
Yeah.
right, so I don't know my JavaScript at all. I can just go to basic things in HTML. I've just asked it to write some code in HTML to tell me what the date and time is. So it's gone away and it's actually written some. Now, you can copy it and paste it into your editor, and hopefully it would work. But I certainly think, depending on the complexity of writing HTML code or whatever, you might have to add bits and pieces to it to make it work effectively.
So if I can provide an example, a practical use case for in the software engineering space, if you're a software engineer, guess what? Software engineers, what they do is that they write their code and ask ChatGPT to help them to debug and check it and see whether there are any mistakes. Because it's very precise, right? So you will know whether you've used the right, followed the right convention, the right format, the right terms. It's good at those kinds of things. Yeah.
Got it self-correcting.
Music notation. That's interesting.
Ah,
I hadn't thought
well,
of
okay,
wondering.
I'm probably the most unmusical person you're ever going to meet. But I think it probably could.
Can I help here? I think this is really good that we're getting all these kinds of questions, but the point is this, we want you to know that there's such a thing called ChatGPT. And guess what you do? Go and try it out. That's how you would know.
Yeah, don't be afraid of it.
Exactly, right? Because all these questions that you do not know the answer, guess what? Now you have a co-pilot. This is why they use the word co-pilot. Now you have a companion, somebody that can help you, right? Don't take it 100%, just use it as a guide.
There's a danger you could become too dependent on it.
Yes.
You
Sure.
banish it.
Yeah. I think,
Really got to check it.
I think in terms of technology, there's a danger that you'll be quite complacent and you'll just think that GPT will always have the answers. It won't, it will only have the answers that it's programmed to come up with. But the other thing that I want to show you, right,
The case of it inventing legal cases, that's not machine learning, that's it inventing
Yeah.
information. So how can that happen if it's based on machine learning?
I think, sorry, can you give me that question again?
The case of GPT inventing legal cases, if it's based on learning, how's it
I think
come up with
I think it's
inventive
probably
cases?
gone slightly rogue there. I think that it's probably thought that something was going to be really important to include because someone's actually given it wrong information. And yeah, and I've just written a letter to my girlfriend. I am married, I'm happily married by the way, and in Swedish. And it's given me a letter in Swedish so I can impress her if she was a Swedish speaker. ChatGPT is good, but I certainly think that in terms of giving you case law, you've got to be really, really skeptical of it. And you know, you've got to go and do a bit of research to see whether that case law actually existed, because there's a tendency to think that someone somewhere might have fed it incorrect information. And if you feed it incorrect information, when you ask a particular question, you will get that incorrect answers. It's always a good idea to research and go, does this sound legitimate?
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. Yeah, I think, you know, if we look at this at one level as this is a very generic, useful tool to get some guidance, that's probably what most people would start with. But as you get closer and closer to the other end, let's call it the business end, where you need to be super precise. Now you see why companies are either paying for a service or they're using their own data, because that's how you manage the quality of the output, because it's garbage in, garbage out. Currently, if it's about the whole internet is a mixture of good stuff and bad stuff. If you really want to control that quality, now you see why that data set that you have, that you apply this technology to, will be very, very different. Yeah.
Could I ask one last question from Zoom? Could I ask a last question from Zoom? Just taking two questions together. Concern about the privacy. and whether the information you put in can be picked up by other people, but also the future risks to jobs, to healthcare, etc. in the future. I've probably better make that the last Zoom
Okay.
question. Thank you.
So you do need to sign on with your Google details or your Apple ID. And I guess there's always going to be some element of risk. But I certainly think the questions that you pose to it is going to help it make it a better system in the future. I mean, for example, you know, lots of people are concerned about the privacy issues around Alexa and Google Home. But I think the questions that you ask it that it doesn't currently have an answer for are really useful, because it makes it go away and find out what the answers are. And you know, the more information that we can give artificial intelligence is going to be the better. And for jobs and services, well, I have to, in Coventry, our doctor's surgery has gone on to a system called patches.ai. So I don't actually get to speak to a receptionist. It's quite good, because our receptionists at our surgery are always quite angry first thing on a Monday morning. And so patches.ai asks me lots of questions, and depending on what the questions, or depending on what the answers that I give it, it will suggest a course of action. I find using AI far nicer than talking to a grumpy receptionist on a Monday morning who's probably got.
But what about if you're elderly? This has happened at my doctor's surgery. So you cannot make a phone call and make an appointment. You cannot go in and make an appointment. You have to download an app, and the AI comes in and asks all the questions, and then you might get an appointment if you're lucky.
Change the doctor.
No, but it's barrow wide.
My doctor brings me back. And I,
Yeah, but
I was
it's barrow wide. So
Actually,
what do you do? Move house?
I have got to say, I've got to say that doctor surgeries and the NHS need to realise that for some people, it's going to be really difficult. For some people, they are going to need to talk to a human. So it's not, in a way, I don't want to stand up for the NHS, although I think they're a great organisation. But the point is that for some people, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I think organisations that provide electronic functionality need to think, what about all those people who don't have smartphones? I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but you know, from the 75 years and upwards, the percentage of people who have smartphones increases quite a lot. So just having a device that requires you to have a smartphone isn't that good, because for some people, they've got no interest in having a smartphone. So there's got to be.
But it's a great way of killing off the elderly, isn't it? Reducing costs. Do you know what I mean? It's serious thought.
I certainly think that people need to think how older people are going to want their services, and just telling them, go and download the smartphone app. I mean, a good example is in Coventry or in Stratford-upon-Avon, you can only get a car parking space if you've got a smartphone.
Yes, yeah.
But what about all the people who haven't got smartphones? You know, but someone's had this idea to make it so much easier. And of course, for the majority of people, it does. But a lot of people, it actually doesn't. And I think that's what people need to realise.
It leads to increasing isolation for the elderly.
Of course it does.
Sometimes,
Exclusion.
sometimes the old systems were better, where you
Yeah.
actually went to the doctor,
Yeah.
everybody queued up outside,
Yeah.
and when they opened, you went in and they saw everybody.
At least we got seen, yes. Yeah.
But, I mean,
You don't get
Well, when I was
seen.
talking to my parents, they don't like using the NHS app. They just want to ring it up in the morning and get an appointment.
Yeah.
And for some people, they want to continue doing it in the way that they've already done it, which is fine. But I think there's been a movement towards smartphones and using technology to make things easier. But actually, sometimes you've got to wonder, who's it making it easier for?
So
Yeah.
can I jump in again? Just about a week ago or two, the BCS and the Digital Property Alliance, we had a webinar that we talk about the memorandum of understanding. This is a way to make sure that we all better guidance and steer and understanding about how to solve problems, right? And one of the key takeaways, if the blog is there, you can read it, is that we also acknowledge the fact that we should not forget about the human element. So today, I know we're talking about the advantages of using technology to help, but it's not at the expense of not having human support when you need it. I think that is the understanding that needs to be had. So I just want people to be aware that there's beginning of a more understanding of this issue, and Maureen is here. This is why we're trying to make sure that we really pay attention to this other type of support that's required.
Can I
May I
just point out that at least 1 million people do not have any internet access at all.
Really?
Is that in this country?
In this country.
Sorry,
So it's slightly off tangent, but talking about sort of people being left without communication where technology's moving on. I'm being forced into this digital voice thing tomorrow with the broadband. I've had no sense out of my provider at all what's actually going to happen. And, you know, as we know, potentially the landlines are going. So the elderly that haven't got a smartphone, maybe on a care call button, don't have broadband. This is being forced in so quickly that it scares me. I support Age UK and some of the other charities that look after the elderly and the vulnerable. And I think this is terrifying. So I'm all for, we know we have to move forward. Dinosaurs like myself with technology, we know we can't stay stagnant, but it's moving on too fast. But I could not get anybody with any sense out of Vodafone to actually tell me what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen with the landline. So things like this would be great to a certain extent. But we've got a long way to go before we can get a lot of old and vulnerable people to this level.
It has been raised for the regulator Ofcom, and there's been complaints against Virgin. And Virgin, one of the providers, told they've got to do more to support and advise.
Well, they need to tell Vodafone as well,
So,
because
yeah.
I've had all sorts of issues with them and I can't get anybody that understands it. They admit, we have no idea how it works, we'll put you on to somebody. Then they sent me a link to speak to Toby, who's one of these idiot online
Yes.
chat people.
That's
Toby doesn't
So,
know.
if I may
Supposed to
bring,
give you a router that you can
Yeah,
put
if
an
I
old
may
phone
bring-
in, and
Yes.
also a battery if you have some of the old technology that needs the power when the networks fail.
can I suggest we continue this conversation afterwards, but your point.
Sorry,
well
I've
made.
gone off on a tangent.
And I hope that what I said earlier on makes sense to you, because now you see why we all as individuals try to just say what we say, we are all in agreement, right? But it's not going to make a difference. What we need to do is to make sure that we also have the right support. This is why I really welcome this MOU by the BCS and the DPA to help us to get the message across. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
to answer your question, I'll see you afterwards and we'll see what we can do to sort you out. And what we're doing an awful lot of work with BT to help older people understand what digital voice is going to be about. There's an awful lot of information that's out there that's absolutely wrong. However, for a lot of vulnerable people, they actually want to speak to a human who really understands the difficulty that they've got. And I'll come to you after the session and we'll see what we can do to get it sorted out. Okay, I think let me just see. That might be the end of my presentation, but let's have it. Okay, so if you want to contact us, you can contact us on 0800 048 7642. And I just want to say thank you for being so patient. When I was asked to come and do this, it felt like a real honour for me. I've never been asked to speak at the BCS. On this showing, I probably won't be asked. Thank you so much, and
Thank you.
and thanks for raising some really interesting and awkward questions, because I don't think sometimes people think about these questions until you're sat in front of an audience. So thank you for asking them. Yeah.
Can you just say the phone number again, please?
Yeah.
We could wait.
Right now. Actually, you know what I'm going to do?
So look, the webinar is not finished yet. What we're gonna do is to do a bit of Q&A. Yeah. Margaret, I'm going to open
Yes.
it between question here in the room and question over to you, yeah?
Okay.
If you say it, we can write it down.
It's louder, yeah.
0800
Yes.
048 7642.
It's a phone number. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Alex comes from Coventry. So decipher that one.
Before we stop,
No, it's.
We'll do a blog.
before we stop here, may
We're
I,
not finished yet, so. Sorry, you were.
may I ask, not all of it.
Yes, in a moment, this is why we want to do this Q&A, right? So I want to get everybody ready. We're going to alternate questions between people in this room and online, if that's okay. Yeah. I hope you have some questions, because I have a lot of questions for. Yeah. But first, I have a question for all of you in this room here and also online. Before joining this event today, how many of you knew anything about AI? You do, yeah? You're putting your hand because you do. Okay, that's good. Right, and how many of you have been using ChatGPT? Okay, not as many. Okay, so
What about Bard? What about the other?
all the other stuff, yes?
Well, you didn't say that, okay?
It's
very
the
much-
AI tools, the AI
You are
tools.
very Microsoft centric here.
Okay. My next question is this, right? Okay, after this event, how many of you are now thinking about at least having a go at one of these tools? Okay, many more of you. So I think that's the whole point of it, right? Because instead of being, it's good to be curious. So if you're curious enough, you would do something about it. But previously, if you are not even aware or you are afraid, we are hoping that today we managed to show you that it can be really fun, so long as you don't believe it 100%. Right? Just learn it for fun. Sorry.
Well, I'll try it again, but having tried it in the past, I dumped it as being not as good as I am, just asking Google questions.
If I may share a story, when I was a young child in my culture, from Asia, I wanted to grow old with gray hair to be the wise old man so that I can be consulted. Until Google came along and I realized that I'm redundant. So this is my first question for Alex, and then followed by this lady, and then we'll get it over to Margaret, yeah? So Alex, how did you first discover tech? Right? Because, he sounds so competent. How did you get started in the first place?
Okay, so I first started using technology when I was about 5 or 6. But you can tell by my fingers I might have difficulty writing. So I used something, and this is quite old school, called a typewriter. Anyone remember typewriters?
Yes.
And it was great. I could type in red or black. So at 5 years old, I was starting to learn how to type. And my mum, bless her, she sent me to a secretarial college on like a Saturday morning with lots of girls and just me trying to get my trying to get my head around using a keyboard. I enjoyed level sessions.
Right, sorry, over to you.
Somewhat a philosophical question. We are here and we are elderly and we're very surprised and lucky. Well, we're very surprised to be elderly. Yes, the following day one wakes up and one is healthy and elderly, one thinks, goodness gracious me. Trees are not like us. We are natural, we are nature. And trees are nature. And a very old tree, it doesn't expect all the young trees around it to provide for it. A young tree will shed its leaves and all its nutrients and let the young trees around eat of that and grow into wonderful trees. So I'm wondering if we should stop, whether we should just count ourselves as lucky that we have lived so long and not demand that everything else is working for us.
People are having less children, so there will be more space for us.
Yeah.
What a question, yeah? And who would like to answer that question?
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Take it away, Alex.
I'd like to make one comment, because you're saying that it was a very philosophical question. I don't know if you all know that, well, especially over here in Europe compared to the US, I think a lot more of us are thinking about more philosophical questions. And so there's one thing that is relatively well done here in Europe is looking at the ethics of AI. So all these things that, you know, privacy, be part of the product because we're giving our information to the systems that they're not going to sell back to us, basically. And so I think one of the nice things about AI, at least in this area of the world, is that there's the role of AI ethicist that's coming to the fore. And so, and it's also a little bit the revenge of the more literary people, because obviously if you're going to write prompts, right, you have to know your English, basically. You have to be logical, you have to be creative as well as high as. So actually, it's not exactly a response to your question, but I'm saying there's a little bit of a, hopefully, there's a little bit of kind of a wave going the other way, where we're actually giving more value to human creativity, human intuition, ethics, philosophy is actually clearly becoming the way to balance things out.
Are the young, we learned history when we were at school and we were young, and I think that goes for most of us. But now the young seem to go on the internet, look at X, and think that's fact. Yeah, not all the young. Not all
Well,
the
that's
young,
why
just general.
part of what the BCS is doing, because obviously the BCS, one of the biggest things of the BCS is actually education. They're obviously championing sort of computing education as we should, but it's quite clear from that team now that we're actually also looking further into kind of the more general
Well, my
education,
fear is chat.
critical thinking, etc., which is kind of the way to.
Let's say the Chinese jump into chat GDP and we end up with this false narrative.
Yeah, but that's already the case.
Yeah, exactly.
That's already the case with social media, right?
Exactly. That's
So let me jump in here with something that I learned at there was a conference last week that Maria and I went to. This is the State of Open conference, and it's about using open technology because it can democratize technology for a lot more people. And it was really interesting that one of the keynote speakers was a professor of machine learning from Cambridge University. And you know what he said? He said, I'm not going to talk about AI. I'm not going to use slides. What he did was he talked about philosophy, right? He says, since everybody who knows nothing about AI talks about AI, I'm going to talk about philosophy. That's what he said, right? And the comment that he made was really enlightening. Here he says, look, if you look at ChatGPT, it's relying on the written word. But the written word comes from where? It comes from a lot of thinking and a lot of discussion before it becomes words. We should go back to the art of interaction in communities so that that written word becomes real and it gets sort of, casted in stone because it is something of value to be trusted, to be passed on, right? Whereas today there's a lot of words, a lot of stuff that's written, they come and go and nobody knows, just like taking a lot of pictures that means nothing. Okay, so there's that. Just conscious of time because we've been here for a while. Margaret, can we take a question from people online?
Yeah. Another one. This is actually one I wanted to ask. Is there anything that can make it easier to identify the work came from a ChatGPT or genuine student from the point of the lecturers, the teachers, conference organizers, etc.?
So lecturers are now using tools to make sure that it's not been plagiarized. So people, if I was at university now, I could send my lecturer an email with my document in. They can run a document through a document checker, and it can make a good stab at whether I've plagiarized from other documents. But I've just done a Google search, and this might interest you. So it says a report shows that ChatGPT shows significant and systemic left-wing bias, study finds. This is quite interesting. So, for coming up with content, you've got to think, okay, where's this content actually coming from? What political standpoint is it coming from? It's okay talking about Tina Turner, but if you were to ask it about what the causes of recession were or something like political, depending on where the information is coming from, it could be biased. I mean, I've not done much work on this, but I think it's quite an interesting topic.
This is an issue for the American elections now, that you can poison the source data.
Yes. So in my other life, I'm a researcher. I've been in education for a long time, higher education. And if you talk about ethics, right, look at the research ethics, there is a body and there's a process of how you create content that can be verified and challenged, and you can sort of have the trace to the source. So my simple answer is, if we apply the same rigor of ethics in research into the data that we think is of value out there, we'll be in a much better place. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, again, as technology professionals, one of the things that we want to encourage and also to educate our profession here is that as leaders or as technology professionals, we also got to take this issue of ethics very seriously. Because if we have ethics in our mindset, then some of the stuff that we're seeing today would not be as big an issue as it is today. Why? Because today we can build, like if you hear about the Horizon post office system, we can build systems with no comeback, right? So these are some of the things that we need to do better as a profession, that we are going to continue to evolve, right? But that we can learn. It's not starting from scratch. There's a lot of things we can learn from many other industries and sectors. Sorry.
If ChatGPT is owned by China, that would explain why it's left wing. If it's owned by Elon Musk, why it's right wing. Who owns it?
ChatGPT?
Who owns GPT?
It's actually, technically, it's a nonprofit that owns ChatGPT. It's American. And they have a commercial arm, which is 50% owned by Microsoft.
Yeah.
But let me turn this question a little bit broader. Who owns the internet?
Well, it was given for free.
Right. So think about that question and that answer, because if the internet is for all of us, then we all have been contributing towards it, both good and bad. Right now, you see why, if the corpus of knowledge and content is based on what is available out there, then you can see why we choose certain things, we prefer certain things, but it's free choice. But if you want better quality, this is why that has to be a different place to go and do that. Now you see why, the private sector, especially those commercial enterprise, if they value their IP, right? For example, we talked about case laws earlier on. If this is the legal profession, guess what? They would do well to make sure that they look after their data, that it's not being corrupted by anything else. They can trace every reference to every source. And that's how you create that sort of confidence around the data. But if you are just taking it freely, then you can't really take it. You can only take it at face value. Yeah.
Yeah, but how open source is open source?
That is another big question for later.
So my question to BCS is this just the beginning? Are you going to have more events like this where you're particularly targeting older generations?
So I would answer this question in a very sort of general and fair way, right? BCS, one of its 4 priorities is digital divide. Digital divide affects everyone, the young and the old. So I would not say this is only about the old, I would say it's about everyone, which is why today's topic is not about AI for older people, it's AI for everyone. So I hope people can see that BCS has that societal responsibility to address issues across everything and at all levels. Make sense? Yeah. But what we are doing is, I'm so privileged that Maureen is now our BCS digital sort of older people champion, because through her we can make sure that we can have more conversations like that that's focused on older people's concerns and needs. Yeah. All right, let me take a question online. Margaret, another question, please.
Okay. By the way, just a response back about the students' work, and I must read this to you. If there are no spelling errors in an essay, it's unlikely to be from a student.
That's a nice one.
But coming back to a question, can you ask where the particular information came from that you're getting from the ChatGPT?
So that was the point I was making earlier on. And just to give you an example, recently I asked ChatGPT for specific references to a question that I have. And I was so pleased with the answers that I got, except that when I started checking the references, I couldn't find one of them. So I then asked ChatGPT, I say, why could I not find this one that you recommended? And of course, this is where you realize that they make things up. So be very careful, right? I think, again, it's been mentioned in the chat already, some people are experiencing this. So now you see why you cannot really fully rely everything. Look, again, I've been publishing for a long time. One of the things that publishing has been trying to distinguish itself from all the free content out there is about being sort of evidence-based, right? If you know that, for example, I used to work on a medical database. If you know that the answers coming from there can be attributed to a specific source that you trust, yes, like what is the right dosage for this particular medical condition? And if it gives you an answer, you want to be able to trust it, but you will not trust it unless you know where the source is. See what I mean?
But humans make things up.
In general, yes. But how often do you rely on a specific answer to that degree of precision? That is why we got to understand that it's about that balance. So let's not think about it as binary, meaning that it's either perfection or free for all. Yeah.
Copilot does quote its sources.
Yeah. Yes, but as I say, let's check that the sources are correct, right? This is where currently it's not quite there yet.
My greatest issue was that if we become dependent on it, I'd see the same scenario that 30 years ago, I created the CNN television distribution of news to Europe. And initially they gave it free to all the hotels. And after 5 years, they said, now the hotels are so dependent on it, we can start to charge.
It's a good business model.
Exactly. So that is a concern, though, to see what the future could be. And ideally, it stays free to access.
Look, as a technology professional, when I mentioned about the wise woman story, right? So when Google came along, how do you think I felt at the beginning? I'm like, this is so stupid. One screen with one box. I did not realize it's going to take over the world, right? Do you see what I mean? So there's something that's going to be beyond our imagination right now, just because you have no idea what's going to happen next. But you know what? This is one journey that's going to unravel fairly rapidly, just because it's going so quickly. Yeah. And there's a lot of money in it. That's why lots of things are going to happen.
And you've got motivations very like Microsoft's, because I remember when I was responsible for business in Africa for many years, they gave free software to schools because they wanted the children to grow up familiar with Microsoft
Yes,
software.
exactly.
So companies employing them afterwards needed to buy Microsoft software.
Or having used it, they'll ditch it.
Sorry, Alex, you want to say something?
I was gonna say, I think eventually, if you want to use ChatGPT, you're gonna have to pay for it. You know, it'll be like getting a subscription to Microsoft 365 or something like that. I think at the moment, you know, your information is good, but it's not, sometimes the sources might not be legitimate. I think they're gonna force people to pay for it, and then they can say, you're paying for a service. Now we're gonna make sure that the information we have is exactly right. The other thing that I would say is, you know, AI is only as good as the information that's been put in. So, you know, there's lots of bias in AI, and depending on what demographic you are, what sex you are, what sexuality you are, you may find that the information that you get is in your favor or actually, you know, against you. So what I would say is, whilst AI is a really, really, really good tool, you've just got to give it a little bit, you've just got to be just a bit skeptical about it.
Yeah. So like, I like to suggest that maybe we take 2 more questions from the room and also 2 more questions online. Margaret, do you want to go with the next question?
Okay. There was actually a very much agreement about the comment of students still getting Microsoft free. There was questions actually came up about somebody, could they create a photograph of, say, a black and white cat in a particular pose?
Yes. I am sure you could.
Yeah. The answer is yes.
Just to add, there's an even more practical application, because I do a lot of photography,
Yeah.
and you could take an old picture that was out of focus and it will correct the focus for you.
Yeah, that's very good, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, you have a question? You put your hand on earlier on?
Oh, yes, I did. When I was talking about trees and human beings, the main thing I said about trees is how when they are old and suffering, they actually make a point of shedding all their leaves and power to enable the younger ones. So I think that we as elderly people should do that. It means that we need to find out about AI and all these things, so we are as alert and as knowledgeable as possible, so we can shed all our knowledge to the young people, to our grandchildren, to our great-grandchildren.
I like that.
So the fact that I don't mean that we should be killed. I mean that we should not think only of ourselves, but we should think that we can give to the young to make their lives more worthwhile by learning about ChatGPT, etc.
And volunteering goes with that, yes.
And
volunteering to share that knowledge.
Exactly, and
I volunteer.
but why is that?
Why not be paid so we can enable the young? We can give the money to the young.
Really?
Young trees are reciprocal. They actually take it happily. Try and talk to one of the young.
Again, that will be another topic. All right, Margaret, next question, please.
I think it's coming back onto the one about the advice that you might be getting from the health service that comes from AI, and also the effect on jobs in the future.
I certainly think that I certainly think I would rather talk to a health professional than to get information on a health concern from ChatGPT. However, I know if I have a mark or a spot or something on my arm, I don't think ChatGPT yet or AI in general is going to be able to I'm not gonna be able to show a photograph of it and it's gonna tell me what to do. I would much rather go to see someone who's had like 7 years of medical training, because I'm not willing to put my life at risk just in case the machine's having an off day. I'd rather go and see someone. And
So,
Actually, there's actually the opposite science that says this, especially in imagery.
yeah,
AI is way better than doctors, way better.
And
exactly. So
surgery.
let me
Surgery, I don't know. Yeah, actually.
let me give you two examples, right? One is very specialized, the other one is very general for everybody. So that example here, right? For example, if you are somebody who's a specialist looking for either like a car estimator to check out a sort of car damage, or a medical specialist who's looking at a spot on your body, you know what? The amount of data that you go through to be precise about that condition, technology can do much better than a human being can. Plus, you will need to train up a lot of those, and it's not easy to maintain that. And even after that, over time, that would disappear, right? So that's an example where it's a really good use case for technology like that. If you look at the other extreme, there are many jobs today, yes, about fear of losing job. It's true. There will be many sort of low-end job where it's relying on a human. For example, let's say in banks in the past, where if you need to onboard a new customer and you've got to do background checks on them, there will be armies of human beings trying to do that. That is very time consuming and it's not very precise and you can get it wrong. So the idea here is that, hey, look, where things that can be automated to help you, that would be part of the solution, but it doesn't solve the problem 100%. So you really got to be careful about where you think it can help you, right? So I would like to suggest, let's not go away thinking that the answers to our questions today is a binary one, which is either this or that, right? There's still a little bit to go in terms of figuring out what is the right thing to do at the right time to the right degree. I'm going to take one last question from the room here, gentlemen over there.
It's not often I'm surrounded by two type of people. Could someone explain to me the Turing test and whether it's been passed yet?
Anyone?
Turing test is, it's all about not asking somebody a question and putting the screen between you and the person who's answering, and the person who's answering might be a machine or it might be a person. And if you who are asking the question can't tell the difference between the machine and the person, it's passed the Turing test.
So it's been passed several times, is it?
Yes. But they keep changing the parameters.
Test it. No.
So it used to be, well, a machine will never be able to play chess. Okay, so a machine can now be a chess master. A machine will never be able to play Go. A machine can now prove, and it can prove that it produces a move in Go that no human has ever thought of before.
So presumably it's like poetry, a machine will never be able to write poetry.
Exactly, and then you get poetry, so you change.
And it can and so on.
The Turing test has developed over time, I think is the fair.
So where's it stand at the moment then? What's the hardest thing for artificial intelligence to do?
That is again another question that we can think. Okay, can I like to suggest?
Ask it to play tic-tac-toe, it won't, but ask it to write a program to solve tic-tac-toe and it will.
Yes.
So
Listen,
there's no direct.
I would like to draw this presentation, but those people who are in this room here, please stay behind. We can have a chat, right? What I'd like to do is, Margaret, can I get you to do the honors of telling us what's going to happen next after this event, including the presentation materials?
Yes, thank you very much. For everybody that's on Zoom, there's been fantastic number of positive comments and thank you very much coming in. Could I actually ask those on Zoom, could they either show their appreciation by using the reaction so we can actually clap, and alternatively unmuting themselves so we can actually see you clapping.
And for those people in the room, please give.
She's older than me.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thanks.
And then on that note, I want to thank everybody, but I want to leave you all with something to do, yeah? Okay, because there's no such thing as a free thing, right? Look, the reason for doing this is because we want to have as many people to be aware of this thing. So the one ask that we have of you is this: if you have come in here not knowing what you have now known, we would like you to make sure that you share it with the next person. Right? Because you know what? That is the power of what each one of us can do. Sometimes when we think about how do we solve this AI problem or this digital divide problem, I have many a days where I'm like thinking, why am I doing this? Right? Not me alone. But then the one thing that made me realize that if I can only just help one person, and the help of one person is not about doing something great for them, but to just share something that now they are a bit more educated, they're a bit more aware. Isn't that wonderful? So please do that, please. And then the second thing is, do not be fearful of ChatGPT or any related. Go and have a play. It's free for now. So please go and get yourself educated, and then you'll be able to contribute more to this conversation, right? Do not let it happen to us, right? We are responsible for making sure that it's going in the right direction. So please do your bit. So thank you on that note, yeah?
Thank you.